None of this stuff is in the Bible. He's using other texts or what they call apocrypha or whatever. I don't know where he read that particular thing at, but I did 8 videos. This is the 8th one, not the one I already draw earlier. I did 7 videos where it proves even who Jesus was and who he wasn't, and Jesus wasn't his name, Yahshua wasn't the name. This is what the Jews was using in Aramaic, but that whole thing was created from the real Jesus, which was the son of Cleopatra and Mark Antony. So what happens is Flavius Piso was a Jew who turned on the Jews in back around 69-70 AD when the Romans was trying to take over. I think it was Judea. They was where the temple was at, and they was fighting the Romans, and they ended up losing. But he ended up switching and started working for the Romans. That's how Flavius lived, and then he started writing this whole thing trying to control the Jews. And that whole Jesus character and all that stuff in the New Testament was written around Cleopatra's son, who had died 14 BC. So you talking about they say it ain't no 0 BC, so we're just gonna say it just for the sake of a reference point. So you got 14 BC, so 14, 13, 12, 11, 10, all the way to, let's say, 0 or 1 AD, which is the AD is in the year of our Lord. Some say after the death of Christ, right? So that tells you that Jesus was already dead. So you got 14 years. Then when Flavius and them got into it with the Romans, that's around 66 AD to 70 AD. So you got 66 years plus 14, they give you 74. So you got 74 years had already passed since the real Jesus, which is Caesarion Ptolemy the 15th, who's on record and on the walls and of the Dendera temple in Kemet.
Dendera?
Right? The Denderos is a
I know all about the temple of Dendera.
Right. Him and Cleopatra is in there.
It's the oldest temple in Egypt.
Right. So they don't know nothing about that. And so what happens is, while they're trying to prove the Christians don't know what the hell they talking about, they don't know what they talking about, because they still believe that Jesus existed in the way that the outside of the books of the Bible say, when that was also a cover-up. The real one lives 70-some years before what they was doing. Piso created the Jesus character off of him trying to control the Jews, and then by the time the Nicene Council came in 325 AD, what his name is, Constantine used that blueprint that Flavius had to try to still use that to control the Jews and other people and they surrounding.
Kind of peace in war times. I'm gonna drop a little bit more information dealing with Constantine and how he used what Flavius, Piso and them had done centuries before them to his advantage, and created Christianity is a Romanized version of Judaism with a strong Kemetic history to it, which is based upon the life and death of Caesarion Ptolemy the 15th. Excuse me, and his mother Cleopatra. All right. Noon Ethiopia 61, Newpool embryo year 97, April 18, 2023, 659 days to February 5th, 2025. However, as the saying goes, Rome was not built in a day. Constantine's experience in replacing the existing religions across the Roman Empire should be compared and contrasted with Akhenaten's experience and his attempt to uproot the old religion of Egypt. So now making a contrast. All right, so Constantine, by the time he came into power, you got an equal standard. They had religions. All right, Catholicism was not there at this point. but they eventually co-opted what Flavius Piso did 200 some years before him, and they altered the religions that they had and built it around the murder of Caesarion Ptolemy, the son of Cleopatra and Mark Antony, not Julius Caesar, as their history would have you believe. Within a single generation, Akhenaten's Atenite experiment was over, the old gods and the old priesthood restored, and Akhenaten was all but erased from history.
Ancient Egypt continued to prosper during the 14th century BC, while religion started to play a more prominent role in the lives of Egyptians as well. A bold new pharaoh named Akhenaten attempted to upend centuries of tradition by forcing the people of Egypt to abandon their pantheon of gods in favor of worshipping a single deity, Aten. Despite being labeled a heretic and a rebel, Akhenaten introduced the foreign concept of monotheism to the world and forever changed the course of history. Akhenaten was given the name Amenhotep at birth, meaning Amun is content. He was the second son of Amenhotep III and his principal wife, Queen Tiye. As a younger sibling, the rank of pharaoh only fell to him after his older brother, Thutmose, died unexpectedly in his youth. Upon his father's death in 1353 BC, he was crowned pharaoh as Amenhotep IV in the city of Thebes, thereby ascending the throne as the 10th ruler of the 18th dynasty. He married the legendary Nefertiti, making her his great royal wife and queen of Egypt. Despite the pharaoh having multiple wives, records show that Nefertiti and Amenhotep shared a close and intimate relationship, having at least 6 daughters together, but no sons. Nefertiti was a very influential queen, relishing in her role as the second most powerful person in Egypt. This limestone bust of the queen created by her royal sculptor has rendered her one of the most iconic and recognizable ancient figures today. At the time of his ascension to the throne, the worship of many gods was common in Egypt, with Amun believed to be the king of the gods. Aside from possibly Ra and Osiris, Amun was the most worshipped god in the Nile Valley and was the central deity of many cults at the time. Despite their different gods and practices, these cults were generally based on balance and eternal harmony. The cult of Amun had been growing in strength and influence for centuries, and by the time of the new pharaoh's reign, they had amassed nearly as much wealth and status as the royal family. In fact, the priests of Amun are said to have owned more land than the pharaoh himself. This situation may have fueled the fire that drove the future drastic actions made by Akhenaten. For the first 5 years of his reign, he allowed the worship of all traditional Egyptian gods. However, likely influenced by his mother Queen Tiye, the pharaoh's attention gradually focused on one particular god, Aten. Aten is best described as being the disk of the sun that was originally an aspect of the sun god Ra. It is artistically depicted as a solar disk emitting rays with small hands on the ends. The famous stele of Akhenaten appears to show the royal family being touched by the rays of Aten. Worship of Aten was nothing new, and even the previous pharaoh Amenhotep III had revered Aten above all other gods, but never to the same fanatical extent as his son. As a sign of his dedication to Aten, the pharaoh changed his name in the 5th year of his reign from Amenhotep IV to Akhenaten, which translates to the living spirit of Aten. By his 9th year in power, Akhenaten had declared Aten to not only be the supreme god, but the only one worthy of worship. This radical declaration is considered by many to be the birth of monotheism, But Artanism is perhaps best described as monolatry or henotheism, because its followers worshipped a single god without denying the existence of other lower deities. Akhenaten ordered that temples dedicated to Amun be vandalized or destroyed, and that images containing any god other than Aten be banned. He had references to other gods chiseled out of monuments all throughout Egypt. Akhenaten eventually declared that he was Aten's only messenger, altogether supplanting priests and other religious leaders. The aristocracy viewed this sudden shift towards monotheism as a significant threat to the empire, but largely went along with the young pharaoh's reforms. Many priests of Amun hid texts and artifacts, saving them from Akhenaten's wrath. Towards the end of his reign, Akhenaten went as far as to declare himself and Nefertiti actual gods, and demanded that they be worshipped as such. Meanwhile, people referred to the pharaoh as a heretic king and considered him a puritanical tyrant who had abolished Egypt's traditional religious rites. The same year in which Akhenaten declared Aten to be the only god, the pharaoh also ordered the construction of a new capital, which was to be named Akhetaten, meaning Horizon of Aten. The city of Akhetaten is more commonly known by its Arabic name, Amarna. The pharaoh chose to symbolically build his city in the center of Egypt, between the old seats of power in Thebes and Memphis. He viewed Amarna as a distant place where he could build a new religion devoid of the constant reminders of the old gods. Leveraging his vast wealth, the pharaoh erected an impressive number of temples and monuments throughout the new city. Temples were built without roofs, allowing the sun rays to fall freely upon worshippers. The city was built facing eastward and positioned precisely as to direct the morning sun rays towards the temples and doorways. The pharaoh's ruthless courts greatly frustrated royal envoys sent to Egypt. An Assyrian king wrote to Akhenaten concerning the matter, saying, "Why are my messengers kept standing in the open sun? If it does the king good to stand in the open sun, then let the king stand there and die in the open sun." Akhenaten and Nefertiti would journey from one end of the city to the other by chariot, mirroring the journey of the sun across the sky. Akhenaten's reign is often referred to as the Amarna period, since subsequent pharaohs reinstated Thebes as Egypt's capital. Some of Egypt's most stunning artwork hails from this period, offering unique insight into the everyday lives of the royal family. Strangely though, Akhenaten is always depicted with alien-like features, such as a thin neck, elongated head, protruding chin, and strange eyes. This has led some to speculate that Akhenaten suffered from Marfan syndrome, an inherited disorder that affects connected tissue and disfigures the afflicted. Although the pharaoh descended from many generations of inbreeding, this is unlikely because other members of the family such as Nefertiti were depicted in the same manner. It's more likely that the art was created in this style to reinforce their godlike status. Akhenaten must have regarded politics and governing to be activities beneath the self-proclaimed god such as himself, because he often neglected matters of state and diplomacy. After previous pharaohs such as his father worked tirelessly to strengthen international ties, this behavior was a major disappointment to not only the people of Egypt, but to its allies as well. A series of letters known as the Amarna letters provide evidence of the pharaoh's gross negligence. Rib-Hadda, the king of Byblos and a loyal ally to Egypt, wrote to Akhenaten over 50 times to ask for his help in fighting against a Canaanite leader named Ziru, who was preparing to lay siege to Byblos. He also requested help defending against his increasingly resentful peasant class. In one of his many desperate letters to the pharaoh, the king wrote, "The people of Umayyah have killed their lord, and I am afraid. Like a bird in a trap, so I am here in Byblos." Akhenaten became frustrated by the king's many letters and responded only once, writing, "Why do you alone keep writing to me?" Rib-Hadda was quickly overrun by his enemies and dethroned. He was forced into exile and assassinated by Aziru shortly thereafter. Tushratta, the king of Mitanni, who was another close ally of Egypt's, had given his daughter's hand in marriage to Akhenaten's father, Amenhotep III. Upon his father's death, the young pharaoh married the Mitanni princess as well, making her one of his lesser wives. Tushratta sent Akhenaten many letters to protest, never receiving the agreed-upon bride price of solid gold statues, and instead having been sent only gold-plated wooden ones. The pharaoh didn't avoid all diplomatic matters, just those that didn't personally interest him. His attention was primarily focused on religious reform and life within his palace. After 17 years of controversial rule, Akhenaten passed away and was entombed in a necropolis east of Amarna. Burial instructions found on a stela in the capital reads, "Let a tomb be made for me in the eastern mountain of Akhetaten. Let my burial be made in it, in the millions of jubilees which the Aten, my father, decreed for me." In the years following his burial, Akhenaten's sarcophagus was desecrated and destroyed. His mummy was taken from the necropolis and is thought to have been reburied in the Valley of the Kings, but conclusively identifying Akhenaten's corpse has proven a challenge for archaeologists. The sarcophagus was reconstructed in the 20th century and is currently located in the Egyptian Museum in Cairo. Akhenaten was succeeded briefly by two pharaohs named Smenkhkare and Nefer-Nefer-Ruiten, before his son, whom he fathered with his sister, took the throne. This was none other than the famous boy pharaoh Tutankhamun, whose reign marked the end of the Amarna period. Upon ascending the throne, his advisors convinced the young pharaoh to reject Artinism and restore the traditional worship of Amun and the old gods. To mark this change and to prove his devotion to Amun, the young pharaoh altered his name, changing it from Tutenhaten to Tutankhamun. He also abandoned his father's city of Amarna and re-established Thebes as Egypt's capital. Tutankhamun's successors, particularly Horemheb, tore down many of Akhenaten's constructions and used the rubble for their own building projects. Horemheb went above and beyond to strike Akhenaten's name from historical records, and did such an effective job that the heretic pharaoh's name doesn't appear in any of the king lists compiled by later Egyptian rulers. The discovery of the Amarna site in the 19th century is the only reason that Akhenaten's existence is known to the world. Ironically, Akhenaten is now one of the most notable pharaohs in all of ancient Egyptian history, while most of his detractors have forever vanished into obscurity. Although he may have been despised and viewed as a heretic shortly after his reign, modern historians and philosophers tend to view this religious revolutionary under a different light. As Akhenaten is the first monotheist on record, it is theorized that the pharaoh had a profound and lasting impact on world civilization. The distinguished psychoanalyst Sigmund Freud noted that even though Artinism existed before Akhenaten, it was he who added the something new that turned into monotheism, the doctrine of a universal God, the quality of exclusiveness. Dr. Freud argued that the pharaoh's devoted followers were forced to leave Egypt after his death and were then led by an Artinist priest named Moses. The creation of Judaism cannot be directly linked to Artinism, but there are several striking parallels between the two faiths. Regardless of their possible connection, Akhenaten's radical religious reform is thought to have been a tremendous influence on the later development of monotheistic religious faith. Whether his motivation was the desire to suppress the rising power of the cult of Amun, or if he experienced a genuine religious revelation, his rejection of polytheism set a precedent that would ultimately change the course of history.
Side note, from listening to the video, Akhenaten turned against his father's way and the worship of the older gods. The spirit that possessed Akhenaten in the 18th dynasty around 1353 BCE has returned and taken control of young pharaoh aka Marshall Daniels. Here is the gematria. Akhenaten 34 reduction, Marshall D 34 reduction. All right, so once again, we're talking about a spiritual thing, because you can't come back as another race. Akhenaten was a descendant of the Phoenicians or the Canaanites that invaded Kemet. Not he was not a kinky head, woolly head African, what we would call part of the nappy head, kinky head race. That wasn't him. But the spirit that took a hold of Akhenaten is the same spirit that has taken control of Pharaoh. All right, and this is why Pharaoh is running around saying the things that he's saying. Okay, so we need to equal stand that. We need to again, the same way you may have masculine homosexual spirit could take control of a female and make her appear masculine, even to the bone structure. You can see how those females are built. You know, they had names like Butch and Dyke and all that. It was husky, and the same thing in opposite with a male. You have a female masculine homosexual spirit take control of a male and make the male more feminine. All right, so spirits can alter a being to a certain extent to make them feel comfortable and to express the spiritual or the spirit beings in you expression through your physical. We all seen it. The same way that Akhenaten thought he was the new way to go and change things before him, young Pharaoh Aten has entered the conscious community circuit and tried his best to change all of the old ways from Sarnetta's platform to him. He makes claims that he is the best at everything and better than all who claims Kemet and Egypt's greatness and more. If you study what historians said about Akhenaten and look at older Pharaoh Aten, you can see the point. Excuse me. He claims to be a reincarnated being, which is Akhenaten reborn. He wants to be the only Aten at one worship amongst the black conscious teachers. Let's get back to the article. So once again, all you got to do is, I'm going to drop some clips so you can see what I'm talking about. And if you go and just do a random search and just look at the way he talks, you can tell it's the same energy. He wants to take the old way of doing something and change it to the way he sees it. Okay?
You on the call, Q, brother? Sanchez, what's goody, baby?
What's good, my nigga Q Butter? Salutes, brother.
Salute. Yo, Pharaoh, yeah, brother, you know, shout out to you, young king. I definitely, the question on mental health was asked. I don't want to get personal with the question, but I feel like as a brother to you, and I know you don't know me and stuff, I do feel like the community has kind of like put you in a space mentally where you just sound really like out there with the information. So I'm hyped to say like let's combat certain things, but I'm more maturely saying like, yo, we should have a discussion about mental health and stuff like that. Because I'm just trying to I can't imagine this conversation 10 years from now without me sitting here saying to you, brother to brother, like, do you have somebody in your corner for mental health?
Put me up, Si. No, can you have it to where we all up, or you want it to be big like this? Okay, cool. Now, you can hear me?
Yeah, we hear you.
Perfect. So, you know, I'm open to any and all questions, but what I would say is this before I answer. I mean, as I answer that, I want to ask you a question. I have plenty of people in my corner for mental health. But what I want to say is, I'm a genius. I'm a polymath. You probably don't even know what that is by definition. So I'll give you the definition. A polymath is someone who's an advanced version of a genius. So a normal genius is someone who's advanced in one subject, which would be a monomath. A polymath is someone who's a master of many subjects. So I'm actually a polymath. Not only did I get a shout out from the CIA, once again, I'm the one that figured out the origins of HIV. I'm the one that knows Judy Mikovits and done real lectures with doctors and actually made historical breakthroughs that Ivy League colleges haven't made. So I said to say this, not only do I have people in my corner for mental health, whether I had them or not, I got myself and I got Buddha. So with that being said, you know, I have common sense. But even if I didn't, I want to ask you now, why do you think according to you and whatever level of importance you think you have, believe that I need some kind of mental health check, because I'm a self-made millionaire, about to be a self-made trillionaire with 4 apps and 4 inventions, started a bank, got 51 acres of land, helped get a whole extraterrestrial killed. I'm the one about to meet Putin. I'm the one that was supposed to meet Trump. I'm the one that uncovered it all. I'm the one that figured out Pizzagate, Frazzle Drip. I'm the one that exposed Obama, Hillary. I'm the one that caught goddamn George Soros, who's a Hungarian human trafficker. So my main question to you is, was such a huge resume of work that you could never motherfucking have in your life, what makes you think that something's wrong with me? Because I'm very accomplished.
One, the fact that you believe in everything you just said.
It's right here. What you talking about? I don't believe in it, nigga. I know of it.
The fact that you printed those out.
CNN, did you ever make it to CNN?
Was that an H? I'm just like, no, I'm not trying. Brother, I'm just being straight.
You know, I'm the general. I could get on the internet right now and say I got 50 murders and I ain't going to jail. So my thing is, I'm a real general, nigga. Who is you? Who is you?
Brother that loves you, bro. At the end of the day, we brothers, man. And
you can tell your kids, hey, I was on the live stream today and I got a chance to talk to the general. I got a chance to talk to the leader of the community. Build the pyramids. But then also, on top of it being a unified effort, they was built to restabilize the mosquito. But I don't hunt, I don't abuse nobody. You know what I'm saying? So I feel like, you know, I go out in nature, I meditate, I have my own belief system. Now, just because I don't praise a God or put money in the collection plate or go to a church does not mean that I don't give reverence to the divine for where I am today. I'm into esotericism. You may not be familiar with esotericism.
No, I'm very familiar with esoteric knowledge.
So you should be understanding of my lifestyle and my ways of how I give reverence to it.
Yeah, like we all have to have an ego to create our platform, whatever it might be, to function in this world. But I think your work would be so much more powerful if you would be more open with that. Like, yes, I did this, I did that, I did this, I did that, but really you did nothing because you don't even beat your own heart.
Well, your autonomic nervous system beats your own heart, and that's connected to the universe, and that's actually activated by a level of consciousness that's so powerful it depletes your physical ability to sustain your own soul. And then that's when death takes place, and death is the permanent termination of the biological functions which sustain the living organism. And the reason that you age is because you're just losing power to hold your higher self. So I say that to say I understand all of that. And I give reverence to God. I give reverence to God within myself. That's what it means to be enlightened, your inner light. You know what I'm saying? Even the word soul comes from the word sun. Your solar plexus means your inner sun. So I give reverence to the creator through myself, and I attach myself to the creator, and I attach myself to nature. And I don't destroy that which I believe to be an extension of myself. I believe in oneness. So you may not understand, once again, the way that I give reverence to God, but I give God through me and through all things. I believe God is in a tree.
Absolutely, everything, right?
Okay, and so like I said, you just because you don't understand the way that I venerate.
And I didn't, and that's why I came on here. But like I said, if you made that more clear to the people when you speak, your work, I feel like, will be much more powerful. That's all I can.
It is clear to the people. Don't you know I'm the most famous black person in the whole damn world?
See, but you're giving yourself this image of young Pharaoh this credit. It's not the image, it's the power behind the image.
I believe myself to be a reincarnated being. What's the problem with that?
Because that's a separate image, ego that you created, it appears to the people you're giving credit to yourself as this young Pharaoh, this godly being.
I am a godly being.
I know, and we all are, but we have to give reverence to that which is beyond the identity that we take, because our identity is just so that we can function in the world. Behind that is the creative divine power that is really functioning. It's beating your heart every moment. You have to put no effort towards that.
I'm aware of that, but I'm working though. I'm getting.
That's what I'm saying. I'm here to that power. And I feel like you should make them more clear in what you speak. It's not you that
I already did. I was number one on the App Store. Everybody around the world know who the fuck I is. They know what I do. They know what I believe. I've been saying this shit since I was a kid. Everybody I know, a lot of people already know some of this shit. I'm the one that go in the back with Guru Jacket, the white spiritual woman who passed. I know spiritual people.
That is, unless he somehow lived on as a type of Moses in Canaan. Religious beliefs are deeply and tenaciously held and tend to be passed from generation to generation, so there is tremendous inertia and resistance to change. My view is that Constantine's success must have been a result of many generations of sustained effort. Long before Constantine's time, Christianity, that is Roman Catholicism, had manifested itself in a style that was clearly destined for imperial greatness. As early as the Epistles of Clement 95, Christian era, the church was already organized in a hierarchical quasi-military fashion, taking orders from the Bishop of Rome with the goal of evangelizing the world. Furthermore, as Atwill observed,